Hey there Helldivers, it's good to see you again, once more on the front. Today we're going to be popping heads and going full on cowboy with the new Marksman rifle, the Deadeye. The Deadeye is a new weapon that's from the new Borderline Justice warbond, and let me just say, it's one of my most favourite Marksman rifles in terms of how it feels to fire it, how accurate it can be at ranges, and how its damage is pretty good for all enemies encounters. So today's question is it worth your investment in time? Well, let's find out. The following lever action Marksman rifle is remarkable on close range and long distance engagement, making it quite effective on the bot and illuminate fronts. Its stats back this up fairly well with the following: damage 300, capacity 8, a recoil 120, a fire rate 100, and penetration type medium. On top of that, the weapon's fire rate and damage combined makes it ideal for quickly dispatching enemies in a short amount of time as long as you're aiming at the body's centerpiece. For me, this is quite ideal to have on hand when firing from the hip and in close quarters, as although the weapon works best at long ranges, it can also work pretty well up close. In fact, I do recommend you learn to hip fire with the weapon, as it can lead the shots up fairly well in rapid succession. The Deadeye performs exceptionally well against bugs, bots and rollers in terms of dispatching the enemies within a body or headshot. No matter the armor, the weapon can do pretty well against the non-armored and semi-armored units within the capacity it holds, which is 8 in capacity and 60 in reserve. Its moderately fast fire rate and high damage allows us to deal with the overseers and devastators who tend to be a menace to deal with at times in close quarters, to now be easily destroyed in a singular precision shot or within 3 to 4 body shots to kill them. The weapon only has a single fire mode available upon activation, but also allowing you to have the option available that will increase your scope range from 25, 70 to 150 meters. This overall allows the weapon to play pretty effectively at long ranges, while also somewhat being effective at close range as well. The weapon also has a 30 stagger force, making it the only marksman rifle to heavily stagger medium armored enemies instead of the standard flinch that most enemies tend to shoulder off. This makes it perfect when used against the bodies of most enemies, as it can temporarily stop the enemies in their place, while still allowing you to follow up your shots for a body or headshot of your making. While headshots are better for marksman rifles, the Deadeye is the only weapon where doing solely body shots tend to provide a bigger advantage down the line. Only issue the weapon does struggle with is its reload speed, which is abysmally slow at times, and can hinder when dealing with multiple enemies at once. As the weapon requires players to manually add in the rounds one by one, it can eat up the amount of time it takes before re-engaging enemies once again. It takes 0.5 seconds to add the singular rounds in, while then taking 5.0 seconds from empty to fully filled. Ideally, if you have the siege ready passive on hand, this can be reduced further to speed up the time it takes to reload each round in, but if you intend to use something else, then this is something that we'll keep in mind every time you use the weapon. Its damage profile is pretty good for what you're getting in its package. Its damage tends to drop off at 100 meters, but even then, it's still manageable to use and deal with enemies effectively. Its damage against the bots tend to be where the weapon excels the most in, with devastators dying in one headshot or 3 body shots. Against the rocket striders, it can also be a one shot when aimed at the rockets they have, or 2 shots to the crotch area. However, like always, its reload speed does hinder your performance when needing to deal with multiple enemies at once. The bots tend to be much more easier to navigate around when using the following against them, as their key weak points tend to be very easy to hit, with a few being pretty easy to spot from distance. At the same time, they tend to be a much harder force to take down because of their armor levels in total. As the weapon hits hard and can flinch them quite easily, it does give raise to using the weapon more against them, compared to using the Plasma Punisher, Dominator, or even the Lip Penetrator. Against illuminates, such as the voteless enemies, it can take them out within 1 headshot, while body shots also require 1, although this has to be center mass, as I have seen them survive a body shot if it's aimed much lower on the body. Against the overseers, it can take them out in a singular headshot, even outside of the 200 meters range, which is impressive because of how agile and aggressive they tend to be when using other weapons. Only issue here though is that against the elevated overseers is that it can take a full magazine plus to kill a singular one at times because of how agile they are. If you can focus on a singular body part, then you'll be fine, but if not, the weapon does become a weakness the longer the enemy is up and running. This seems to be the only enemy type where I would recommend you bring a secondary sidearm or even a weapon stratagem as backup, since the following enemies tend to be much more harder to deal with just the weapon alone. Lastly, against the bugs, it does pretty well against them, with killing hunters and warriors in a singular body shot or headshot, while against the alpha commanders it can take around 2 headshots to kill them, which is great in terms of killing bugs fairly fast. Only issue with the bugs is that they are numerous in numbers, which makes using the marksman rifle a problem when dealing with multiple hunters or warriors all coming charging at you. While your damage is impressive against them, the slow reload speed will hinder your performance to actually fight back effectively. And truthfully, if you're going to use this weapon at all on the bug front, it is probably best to use it out of range to where you can keep your distance and reload safely. So the gun overall is very decent and very much worth getting for when you're using against all 3 enemy factions or even solely bots. It performs amazingly with dealing high damage and stagger enemies left and right, which is useful when used on the higher difficulties. And even though its reload speed is a problem at times, this can be partially fixed via the Siege Ready passive, which if you have unlocked, will speed up the reload speed to greater heights. Out of the current marksmen we have, this alone is the best one, in my personal opinion. So there we have it. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you have any thoughts on content shared or genuinely like what was shown, then please leave a like, a comment and subscribe for more future stuff. It was great seeing you again, Helldivers, and I hope to see you again soon.